round of applause.
So I've been here for a minute on campus, just so you know. Parking is a beast.
And the P in public places does not stand for parking.
You want to sit on one of these?
Yes, this is yours.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Oh, goodness, I tell you. That's why I miss New York. We have trains that have delays as well.
So since talking about New York, tell the people tell everyone our FIU, sorry, NBC, our FIU honors college students who you are, a little bit about who you are, from the train to New York to how you get to South Florida.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I apologize for being late, and I'm so glad that you are all here, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you. So I'm originally from New York, Rosedale, Queens, and I went to school in New York. I went to Queens College. I was on this, when I first went to college, I thought I was going to go into law school. I was very targeted about going to law school. Then when I got in to college and I realized some of the classes, I kind of switched my whole journey. I was part of an organization called NIPERG, which is the New York Public Interest Research Group. And basically it's the largest student-run environmental group on campus. And so I started lobbying with other organizations on campus for environmental bills and just, things that weren't being done how we thought correctly. We took over the administration building. So I went to Queens College. Queens College is part of SUNY, which is the State University for New York. And then we have CUNY, which is part of the City University of New York. So Queens College is part of the City University. So they were gonna raise the tuition. So we took over the administration building. My father was a detective at the time in Brooklyn. And I came home the day before and I said, it's going down tomorrow. We're taking over the administration building. I pulled out an outfit. I was like, I'm gonna need you to bring this to me when I'm in jail. Do we have enough money for you to bail me out? I went through this whole thing because I was going to jail. I was going down with the cause. So the next day, midday, my friends started, everybody was yelling, yes, they're not gonna raise the tuition, they're not gonna raise the tuition. Everybody was happy but me, because I was like, what? And they're like, they're not gonna raise the tuition, the governor decided not to raise it. And they're like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I was supposed to be in jail in an hour. I got like this whole plan. I got the outfit, my parents have the money, like I was going down for the cause, So that kind of opened up my eyes to advocacy and being able to utilize my voice. I did an internship. I was also on the speech and debate team, which we called forensics. So I got an opportunity to go to different campuses and and compete. I did an internship with a very prominent congressman in Queens for 2 years, and then when I graduated, I worked with him. God bless you. I worked with him for about 2 years. And that's when I realized I did not want to go into politics, because I thought I wanted to go into politics. But the great thing about my experience is he got invited to everything. Anything in the mayor's office, the governor's office, celebrities, like you'd walk into his office and he would have all of these invitations just kind of out there. And so one day I went in and I said, who goes to all of these things? How could you possibly go to everything? And he's like, I can't. He's like, I really wish that I had somebody in the office that can go on my behalf. And at the same time, I looked at him, he looked at me, and I was like, you think I could do it? And he was like, yeah, would you want to do it? And I was like, okay. In my mind, I didn't have any idea what I was going to really be doing, right? But I had to go on his behalf. Sometimes I had to speak. Sometimes I had to just go and network. And that, I believe, is where I learned the art of being able to speak to anyone, no matter who they were, where they were from, how much money they made, how much money they had or didn't have. Because in my mind, I believe that we all have more in common that we can connect with, as opposed to things that are different about us. Yes, we're different. That's what makes the world go around. But I really learned not to be self-conscious about who I was speaking to. So sometimes I wouldn't even, I'd be speaking to the governor and I probably would, after I spoke to him, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe I just spoke to the governor, and then have a meltdown then, but not during the time frame while I was speaking to him. So that was an early lesson that I learned, that no matter how much money you have, no matter how powerful you are, you're still human, right? And truth be told, a lot of, elected officials or celebrities, they're really very shy, very unsure of themselves, and a lot of them have a lot of people behind the scenes kind of helping them navigate through their position, whether they have somebody writing their speeches, whether they have somebody telling them exactly where to go, what time to go, who to talk to, who not to talk to. So then I went back into his office like about a year later, and I said, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And I had a little bit of a meltdown. Meltdowns are kind of the way I navigate through my life.
I mean, let's have meltdowns. I have meltdowns all the time. So
lean into your meltdowns. They're very good. They're very healthy.
And put some chocolate on it.
Right. Whatever. They're very cathartic, right? So he was able to get me a interview with the United States Environmental Protection Agency. He says, I think that they have a position that I think that you would be perfect for. So I interviewed Lillian Johnson, phenomenal woman. She had worked her way from secretary to the director of communications. I mean, she was just amazing. And I was just like, I want to be her when I grow up. I just want to be her. So I interviewed with her. True as the government would be, they had a freeze. So it was about 6 months later. And I really didn't think I was going to get the job. I was still working at the congressman's office. One day she calls me, she says, listen, I already know in my mind I'm going to hire you, but you need to meet with my two bosses. And I was like, okay, fine, I can do this. And so, I kind of prepped, I did some research, and this is kind of really before the internet where you could just Google everything. So I went down to my good old trusty bookstore in Soho, and just got some newspapers, and I got some magazines, and just try to get the lay of the land of EPA.
So you learned a little bit from
And I learned a little bit from my dad, a lot from my dad. Yeah. Had I known about CSI and all that kind of stuff, I probably would be doing that instead of what I'm doing. So I went, and the first interview was great. Jim Marshall, met with him, it was just great. He was like, oh yeah, you'll be great on our team, and the whole 9 yards. And I had to meet with the other boss. And she's kind of like sizing me up a little bit, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And she says, I feel like I know you. And I was like, oh. I said, well, where do you live? And she goes, I live on York Avenue. And I was like, well, I live in Brooklyn. I said, but sometimes I take the train, so we did the whole New York thing where, I take the 2 and the 3. Well, I take this, and the whole 9 yards. Oh, I've gone to this pizza parlor, the whole 9 yards. She goes, no, I just feel like, and she says, were you in Washington, D.C. about 6 months ago at a protest? Not only was I at the protest, I was one of the organizers of the protest with Nyberg. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I'm not gonna get this job because I have to tell this lady that we were protesting against the EPA. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do now? So in my mind, I'm just like, I said, yes, well, I was in DC. I said, I was with the New York Public Interest Research Group, and I said, and we were protesting EPA's involvement. So EPA is over the Superfund program, which is the cleanup of hazardous waste sites. So back in the 60s and the 50s and early 70s, companies could dump anywhere they wanted to. There was no laws on the books. So EPA put together a program that was cleaning up the hazardous waste sites all throughout the country. However, they were not really doing it with the community's consent or buy-in. They were just coming into communities, doing what they want, doing these testings, coming back 3 years later. Like, it was just not a good situation. So I told her that we were really disappointed with how EPA was, kind of governing themselves and everything like that. And she hired me on the spot.
Round of applause for that.
And I was like, wow. I said, I really didn't think I was gonna get this job. And she said, well, this is what this job is all about. So it was the public affairs liaison job. And basically we were sent to go with the engineers and the people that were doing the testing. And we were all about community press, anything that the media had. But this position was to kind of fill that gap to make sure that we, had kind of our hands wrapped around communities. My first day there, they gave me I had to go to a public meeting that night. And so they gave me all the documents to go along with the project. And so on the ride down there, I wrote with the project manager, and I was like, well, what should I expect? Like, what am I gonna be doing? And he's like, well, we just need to go, talk to the community. He made it sound like it was just we'll probably be in there about 20 minutes, we'll get a bite to eat, and we'll be back. And so I said, okay, so I said, how many people do you think will be there? And he says, probably about 50. I said, okay, that's cool, that's manageable. We get into the parking lot of where the meeting was, and it's just jam-packed. It looks like your parking lot at FIU. And I'm like, I was like, I wonder what all those cars are there. And he says, oh, they're probably here for our meeting. And I'm like, you said 50 people. He said, yeah. Well, I was thinking about it. And Gary, love him. He was just a very, very, very smart, but very matter-of-factly aloof and just, it's probably about 2,000 people. I was just a little off. That would be kind of Gary. So we walked in and you could tell people were just angry. We're sitting, like we would be sitting here, but there's 5 of us. And then there's a whole sea of people. And well, no, there wasn't 2,000. I was just saying that. So there were about 1,000 people, but it was more than 50.
More than 50.
Yeah. And these people are just angry. And so they all look at me, before we started the meeting, and everybody, we're in kind of a huddle, and they look at me. This is my first, not even full day of work, because I've literally been there.
You just started?
Today. And they say, so what are we gonna do? What? What do you mean, what are we gonna do? You guys have been, we don't have a plan. So I was like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna listen. They were like, what? I said, we're gonna listen. To 1,000 people, I said, whoever comes to the mic and has a gripe or a question, we're going to listen. Oh, but we could be here all night. Well, I hope we have the place for all night, because that's what we're gonna do. And that is exactly what we did. We listened, and people did not have very nice things to say, but in my mind, I didn't internalize it because I had just started working hours ago, so I know you weren't talking to me. Right. So we listened, and then I said, I thanked them for their comments. I apologized for our lack of being in the community, and I said, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna come down here once a week, whether we have information or we don't. We're gonna get to know you, we're gonna get to know you and your kids, what's going on, we're gonna have so much coffee, it's just gonna be crazy. I said, but we're gonna commit to come here every single week. The media, you want an interview, we may have information, we may not, but we are gonna be here once a week. And they're all sitting and go, once a week, what? I was like, and that's what we're gonna do. And that is exactly what we did. We turned around the community, the media. We actually won an award from the White House. We got the second highest honor that you could get. They invited us to the White House. It was this whole big thing because of this NL Industries turnaround in terms of the community and the work that was done. So I told that story to just, sometimes you're just put in positions and you just never know. And I always believe that, part of my job when I do crisis communications or PR, sometimes it's just listening. That's all people want you to do is listen. Whether you work at a hospital, whether you are an attorney, whether you are a professor, sometimes there's just a time where whether you're, a daughter, a son, sometimes parents just want you to listen to what they have to say. So fast forward, I moved to DC for 5 years. I worked for some consulting firms, and the last particular consulting firm that I worked at, I felt like there was a lot of environmental injustice going on. So EPA is the government side. I actually worked for one of the polluters who was going in to do the cleanup, and it was in Baltimore, and I just felt like they were doing a disservice to the community, and I voiced my concerns, and my boss dismissed it, and she says, well, whatever the client wants us to do is what we're doing. And I said, well, we're here to kind of guide them to make sure that they do the right thing. and they didn't. So I went home that day. I called two of my best friends. They came over with a bottle of wine. That's how my company was formed. I wish, you know, I always hesitated if I tell the wine part, but I wish there was some like, oh my gosh, I did all this research, but I did not. It was really over a bottle of wine, and they convinced me to call my father to ask him for money so that I could start my own company. Now, if you know my father, he's very tight with the money. So I called him and I said, and the thing about it is I had been doing some consulting and, you know, getting press for my friends, but I was never charging anybody. Like, I had a business probably 3 years prior, but it wasn't, I was just doing it. If you were my friend and you're like, hey, you know, we got this football game and we want to, you know, get some media people out, and I'd be like, all right, I'll do it. And I would never charge you for it because you're my friend. So that's when, you know, I called my father. He says, okay, I'm going to send you a check. And he did. I was able to get my computer. I got my business card. So at the time, I had a roommate on Capitol Hill. She had this really, really big house that she had just bought. And she was like, well, look, I was like, I gotta get office space. She's like, you don't have any clients. What do you mean office space? Your father's check is gonna go to what, rent? She's like, just take one of the rooms. So I went and got one of, like, the name thing. Now, nobody's coming to visit me, but it said Yvette Nicol Harris. Just for my own. And that's how I started my company. It was, I didn't have a plan. I didn't have, you know, it just, I kind of winged it a little bit in the very beginning, which I don't necessarily encourage people to do. I encourage people to have somewhat of a plan, you know. And then I moved back to New York for a couple of years. And then what made me move to Florida was literally the weather. I wish that was some aha moment that I could share with you, but it wasn't. I got tired of shoveling snow. I got tired of being cold. And I knew two people when I moved here. One of my best friends who I knew from college, and a friend of mine who lived down the block from me when I lived in Harlem. And I called them. Well, let me backtrack. Originally, I was going to move to St. Thomas because I was like, okay, where can I move and I don't have to worry about like immigration or work laws or anything like that, and I can just move. I went to work there. I got a contract for about 2 weeks. I was there for 2 weeks. I was in their office, and their phone lines and the computers like went down, and nobody was concerned but me. So I was like, yeah, I don't think I can do this. So I literally got on the plane. I cried the entire flight. I always wonder if the guy that was sitting next to me, because he kept going, are you sure you're okay? And I was like, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. Another moment that I had in my life, but I wonder if he ever thinks about me. I wonder if he ever says, I wonder how that crazy woman that was sitting next to me on the plane. And when I landed, that's when I made the decision to come to Miami. So I know that was a long, but I'm a New Yorker, so I'm very long-winded.
So Yvette, you talked about a lot of things. You talked about the wanting to first start as going to law, right? So it seemed like you had a pull for advocacy at that moment, going the route of the law. And then you talked about what I've noticed. There's a lot of people involved, and there's a lot of relationships involved. For me, PR is about people and relationships. So talk about some of the. Now that you've had your company for some time.
28 years.
28. Round of applause. Round of applause. It's only 25. 25. Talk about what was it like to get the first paid client, and some of the challenges with that, and what did you learn about yourself and people?
So the first paid, so I had my desk, right? I had all of that stuff, and I'm a firm believer that everything happens when it's supposed to happen. I got this email from someone, and she said, "There's this conference taking place in Atlanta. I really think you should go. Like all of these top companies are gonna be there. It's like a lot of entrepreneurs. It's, you know, you need to be there." And I looked at it and I was like, okay, I really wanna go. And I had money because my father had sent me a check. So I was able to book my flight, I got my hotel, and I went there, and I went to a lot of the, you know, the different workshops and everything like that. So I was in the place that they had everybody eating, and I sat down, and this woman comes over to me and she's chatting, and she had this magazine. She lived in California. And she's like, you know, I've been looking for a publicist for a while. And I'm going, oh goodness, okay. And so I told her what I did, and, you know, we talked, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be great. She's like, I just need you to get me a proposal. Let's meet tomorrow for breakfast before the sessions, and we'll see if we can do business together. And I was like, okay, great. I go back to the hotel room and I call my best friend, one of the ones that was bringing over the bottle of wine to convince me to start my company, and she's an attorney. So I said, hey, I was like, listen, I think I got my first client. She said, but she asked me for a proposal. I've never written a proposal before. What do I do? And she goes, how do you not know how to write a proposal? I was like, you were the one that told me to do this thing. Like, I've never written a proposal. So she helped me kind of navigate, how what the person wanted, what they needed, and then I had to put a budget to it. So did that, met with her for breakfast. She changed a couple of things. She's like, oh, I need a little bit more of this, I need this. She made some edits and stuff like that. And she said, okay, this is great. I just need you to get me a contract. I'll give you a check, and we're on, we're gonna start. Contract? What do I know about a contract? So I go back to the hotel room that night. I call my best friend, who's an attorney, and I said, listen, I need you to draft the contract. I'm gonna send you over all the terms and everything like that. And that's how I got my first client.
So you had breakfast, you broke some bread,
Yep.
you had no idea what you were doing.
Zero idea in terms of that.
Yeah.
I knew the PR aspect of it, but the business aspect of it, making sure that you have a contract, making sure that you know how to do a proposal, all of those things are things that I have had to learn how to do over these years,
So your soul drove your goals, right?
Yeah,
Your
pretty
soul, yeah, and who you are is why you are doing what you do. So now that happened.
Mhm.
Talk about some of the ones that didn't go so well.
Oh.
And what did you learn from that?
Ooh, all right, so I'll use different names to protect
To
them.
protect the people involved.
So I was hired to do this really big event that was taking place at the downtown Hilton in Miami. And the organizers, which I did not know, didn't really have enough money to be able to produce this event. So that kind of was a trickling effect of everything that could go wrong, went wrong. From some of the people being put out of their rooms because the organizers had only paid for one night. Some of the entertainers getting bounce checks before they even got to Miami. But the great thing about it was I had every television, newspaper, magazine, all of the press was there. So my part was kind of secured. However, I had to make sure that we gave a good footing, that nobody really knew what was going on because of the lack of resources. I mean, this was so bad that I had to call a commissioner to call the mayor's office to help, because it was also gonna put like a bad spotlight on Miami, and we couldn't afford to have that done. So there were a lot of things that kind of went wrong with that, and it was very frustrating at times. I mean, there was a whole bunch of stuff that was just crazy. And I've never worked on anything like that. I've done crisis communications, but not as it relates to like an event, which is, one thing after another. But one of the entertainers, because some of the entertainers were like, we're not gonna come, this is crazy. They would go to the airport, they were supposed to have flights that were booked, they were not booked. Like, it was just a lot of different things. And I really could have just been like, I quit, because my part was good, right? But, that's just not who I am. So I stuck it out, and at the end, we made a good showing of it, and the participants were the reasons that I really, really stuck it out, because they were young girls. But it was, for me, it was a lesson to always make sure that whoever I work with, that they have all of the resources in place to be able to do what they say they're gonna do. So that was one moment. One time I also set aside, I created a press opportunity for a very major group that's very well known. And we were in their studio, everybody's there, Deco Drive, ABC, CBS, everybody's there. And they canceled. Their management called me and they were like, yeah, they're not gonna show up. And I was like, what? And I had just moved to Miami, like I'd been in Miami 6 months. And I was like, I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? Because I've never heard anybody do anything like that. Like, they're supposed to be in like 20 minutes, everybody's waiting. And she was like, yeah, they're not coming. And I had to turn around and tell all the media people that who they had been waiting for like 45 minutes, an hour, they were not coming, and there was not gonna be any kind of exclusive interview. And I was like, and you know, as a publicist, your word is very, very, very key. Because there are people that do PR that promise people, oh, I'm gonna get, you know, Kanye West, or I'm gonna get so-and-so, and they really have no access to these people. So I never wanted to be one of the people that was associated with making a promise and not really, you know, being able to fulfill that promise. So in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been here 6 months, like this is not the reputation that I wanna have. But I had to be honest with them. And I explained to them and I told them, and when I tell you, everybody came over to me and they said, listen, don't worry about it. We've dealt with them in the past, so we know you're telling the truth. It's okay. We know that you are not that type of like, you know, till this day, you ask Odette Berg from Deco Drive and she would be like, oh yeah, you know, I remember that day. But I could have given up. I could have run out the room. I could have said, you know what, oh my gosh, I can never do this again. But for me, it just gave me more ammunition to continue to go and operate very authentically and very honestly. Because I could have made up an excuse, but for what? You know, I was not in the wrong. I wanted to be really honest with them. So, you know, just not caving into the pressure at the time. But I did cave in when I got home. I was like, oh my gosh.
More. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna shift it a little bit here. I'm gonna ask everyone to say their name and their majors.
Yes.
And I'd love for you to talk about how does PR relate to that?
Okay.
Or how can PR relate to that? So with you.
Hi. My name is Paula, and I'm studying computer science and psychology.
We do a lot of psychology in PR. So I would just say that PR is in everything. There's public relations, because there's relationships in everything that we do. Whether you work at a hospital, whether you work at a university, whether you work at the gas station, whether you work at the airport, there's relationships, right? And there's a certain level of public relations that you have to do. You know, making sure that the image of the company, or making sure the image of whatever you're working with or working for has a positive image going to the community. So I think everybody, I can't name one industry that doesn't have some sort of PR component to it, whether you call it PR or not, right?
Hi, I'm Fernando, and I'm a finance major.
Finance, so what are you looking to do when you graduate?
Well, I'm more into investing in the stock market. I'm more related to that.
So investments, so you might work for a company, they have to do PR. You know, PR is something that builds credibility, it gets your business out there, and it's why people want to do business or purchase a product. So, you know, advertising is different. So you may get a magazine, and like for women, we might see an advertisement of a hair product or lipstick, and we might be like, oh, that's kind of cute. You know, I can see myself in that. But usually it's not until somebody kind of endorses it, where they have like a beauty editor, or now these days it might be a YouTuber, it might be somebody on social media that says, oh, this lipstick or this hair product, you gotta get it because it's this. Or for men, it might be a pair of sneakers, or it might be something. How many of you are familiar with Cane's, Raising Cane's? You know how they kind of got their start? Pretty much they did all of their PR and all of their influencer to kids, my daughter's age and younger, and they just on TikTok. They did these videos. They knew their target audience. It's like a cult now. You know, I don't know who has younger sisters or brothers or, you know, cousins, but Cane's is something, and when my daughter first, I was like, well, how do you even know about this? And she's like, it's on TikTok. Like,
Everything's on.
you know, and I looked and just, you know, and followed how they just really spoke to middle school to high school students. That was their form of PR. You know?
And you mentioned about financing investments. Right now we have the tariffs and what's happening with the stock market, right? There's crisis management. PR plays a role in that as well.
Yes.
Right? So, like, this Bree.
I'm accounting and finance.
Okay, a lot of finance here. Could you help the country now, or we gotta wait? We can.
I just switched to double major, so.
You did. You just. What were you before?
I was just accounting.
Accounting. So now you're. What made you switch, or add the other one?
I don't want to stay in accounting. I want to like learn what I have to in like 2 years and kind of get like an idea of it, and then move on to become a financial analyst.
Financial analyst. Okay. So yeah, there's definitely PR. Whatever company that you work with, pretty much every company after the spill that Exxon had many years ago, because their PR wasn't really something that people knew about, right? Because it wasn't a thing, and it really kind of, if you look up when Exxon had this major spill and they had to go into kind of crisis communications, that was the year that a lot of companies started to incorporate public relations and crisis management into their companies so that they could be proactive as opposed to being reactive, which is what Exxon had to react to all of the negative publicity. So.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm studying international business and marketing.
Marketing, over to marketing. So yeah, so you definitely have all of anything that you go in terms of international business, whether you work with a company in London or Paris or, anything dealing with that, there's a PR component to that. Marketing, of course, marketing, advertising, and PR, we kind of all, and social media, we kind of all work hand in hand to, attain the goals that the company has.
Special.
Hello, my name is Sebastian. My major is logistics and supply chain management.
Logistics, okay, financial management.
No, logistics and supply chain management.
Oh, supply chain.
Supply
Oh,
chain,
yeah. See, definitely. Yeah.
And you think about logistics, you're all about logistics and PR and events.
It's a very, you never realize how important the people that work behind the scenes of something are until you actually work on like an event or you work on a show or, my daughter goes to New World and she just, New World the students have to do tech, so they have to, work on all of the shows behind the scenes. And last year, she was just like, oh my gosh, I have such an appreciation for the people that do wardrobe, for the people that have to get on the stage and take the chairs off and, in between the scenes and stuff like that. And if you look at a movie, you never think about the person that's behind the scenes making it happen, but behind the scenes, I always tell people, especially younger kids that are, looking to figure out what they want to do when they grow up, like look behind the scenes, because those are the people that are always working. And there's just such a joy that I think that they have to know that, when they see something on the bright screen, that they were a part of, such a huge part of that. And like, if you look at award shows, not often enough, but when an actor will thank the lighting people, will thank the makeup, will thank the set design, the PA, and all of those people that make everything that you do successful.
Hi, my name is Erin, and my majors are in marketing and business analytics.
Business, okay. Let's pull you over to the marketing. We could use more people.
My major is business analytics and finance.
And finance. Oh wow, finance heavy. We need you right now though. Can you leave school and help us out? Like, what can you do?
I'm Olivia and I'm studying international business with double major in marketing.
In marketing, okay. So the international business people, do you want to work here? Do you see yourselves out of the country working or?
I see myself moving around.
Moving around, okay. What about you, the international, moving around, yeah?
Hi, my name is Katarina and I'm majoring in public relations, advertisement, and communication.
What made you come to that?
Before I was in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of math, so I just left. So then there was this program I talked to my advisors like, oh, we have this program called PRAC, which is public relations, advertising, and communication, and there's like a kind of minoring that you can do on marketing or psychology or international relations or anything like that. So like I'm interested. I'm very creative. This is an area where I see myself in. So I just began.
Nice. So just so you know, when I was in school, there was no PR major. There was no marketing major. There was communications, but I was an English major and English and poli-sci once I got out of the pre-law. And I always encourage people with anything, not just PR. Writing is gonna be a crucial part of your whole life story. Like there's no getting around it. So, making sure that you can really write is very key in PR. I know that you have AI and ChatGPT and all of that stuff, but you still need to be able to write, because what's required of you, you have to start from somewhere. So, and then I would say you just, so when I have like interns that I work with and they go, well, we're PR majors, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds all well and good, but sometimes life is not just in a textbook, it's what the client wants or is what makes sense. So if you can find the balance between both, that's a perfect world.
Hi, my name is Franco. I'm studying digital and interactive media.
Wait, say it again?
Digital and interactive media.
Oh, nice, okay.
What is digital interactive media?
It's like audio visual communication,
Okay.
more or less. It's like a creative area of a filmmaking project.
Okay.
You can film
We love people
and
like you.
TV production.
Yes, because you make our stuff look good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's you'd be surprised, a lot of people that have been journalists for quite a few, and then they decide to go into something different. They then become the person behind, creating ads for their clients or producing and, that kind of thing. So, everybody wants something that, makes them look good, whether it's a sizzle reel, whether it's a PSA, so that's a very great, and now you can do it on your iPhone.
Yes, we can.
Before you needed a recorder,
Yeah.
a big recorder.
So Sam.
So my name is Samuel Suarez. My major is international business with a certificate in social media and digital marketing and analytics. And
So you're gonna be in Bali doing the international and the social media, you're just gonna be traveling. Right. That's an interesting, how did you come up with that combination?
I started studying international business and I really liked it. And well, since last year I've been part of the marketing club here at FIU called AMA, American Marketing Association.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to like marketing a lot, so I decided to have the certificate.
Nice. One of my interns, she actually graduated from MIT last year and decided that she didn't want to do anything in research, nothing in her major. She is now looking to, start her journey in marketing and PR and social media. Her parents are very upset with that, but she's happy.
That's matters.
My name's Gabriel and I'm also in finance.
Finance, okay, good stuff.
Hey, my name is Pedro and I study business analytics.
My name is Robert and I'm in logistics and supply chain management.
Supply chain management?
Robert's in the Bronx, by
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah.
Wait, who was it that I was talking to on the phone?
Me.
Yes, I
Yeah.
thought you sounded like a New Yorker.
I'm Gabby, I'm in marketing.
Yes, Gabby, marketing. We need more women in marketing. It's kind of a male-dominated field, PR, and ironically, so we need as many.
Well, ironically, in our club, in the marketing club, there's more women than men.
Yeah, it's changing, but when I first started out, it was definitely more male-oriented, but it's leveled off, yeah.
We think
Yep.
that's a question.
In my class of marketing,
So women.
it's like me and Sebastian, and then everyone's women.
Yeah.
So that's
right.
Like I said, 25% are guys, or 30, and the rest are
No,
women.
not
They're all
everybody. That's it.
In our marketing class,
There's me, you, and then the
it's like half and half.
No, there's women.
You saw that girl with 4 huge dudes standing behind her in the presentation?
But you had like 4 groups of my group.
There were like 7 groups, and 6 groups were of made of women, and one group would be.
It was the only. I think it was the only group you saw that has like 4 boys. Then the rest, there were like 5 groups.
Like
There
all
were
of them.
2 groups or 3 groups that have 5 women.
Just look at the
Just
row
women.
around you, I would say.
Like,
Like,
my row, yeah, but
and then
like in
look
the
at the row
front,
behind
I
you and the row above.
the
Like,
row in the back though.
So it's good to know that it's changing, because when I started, it really was
The shift.
very male-oriented, very male-heavy.
Another
Very,
girl
very,
in
very,
marketing is
yeah,
here,
like,
And we have Mia's in, Mia, you said.
I'm Mia and I'm in mechanical engineering.
That's different, right?
nice.
I never-
What inspired that?
I honestly, I don't know. I just really like math. That's
Oh, nice, okay.
You're like just
Wow. Yeah, that wasn't me in school.
Yeah. Oh, hi, my name is KJ Young and I am in business management, plain old.
So do you wanna be an entrepreneur, or do you wanna
Oh
consult, or
no,
what do you
I'm
wanna
just
do?
getting my degree because I'm focused on entertainment and like art management. So I work at a theater, which was really nice to hear you talk about theater and stuff like that. And it is the jobs that behind the scene that get the resident positions and always have a job. But everyone wants to be an actor, and that's like, it's not stable.
Yeah.
It's the dramaturgies and the lights and the electricians who actually have.
And the wardrobe people.
And the wardrobe.
Yeah, I took my daughter on a college tour in California, and just going in like some of the schools, their wardrobe for their theater, I was just like, I don't think I've ever seen this much fabric in my life, you know, like just everything. But will they get the same thank you that the stars, you know, get?
My
Possibly
friend
not.
she did costume construction, so not just design, she was constructing pieces.
Oh, gosh.
And, you know, there's certain things in thespians, the competition, where that's where you get like, you know, your flowers and roses and whatever,
Right.
but when you get like up, you only in certain articles do you see the critics mention this, it's usually the set design because it's in your face, but some people, when in our production meetings, like the development of the wardrobe of the character and how it ties into the historical context is so important that it's a harder job than people think. It's not just, you know, shopping.
I'm one that I always, at a movie, I always watch all of the credits, cause I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like that's my sense of duty just to know who worked on it, you know? And that, well, the reason I kinda started doing that was a movie that I saw that was called Inkwell, and it was supposed to be in Martha's Vineyard. And I had been to Martha's Vineyard several times, and I'm looking at the movie, I'm going, that's not Martha's Vineyard. Wait a minute. Most times people don't like to go to the movies with me, because I'm always pulling something out that's wrong. And I was like, so I sat and I waited, and sure enough, it was filmed in North Carolina. Yeah, it was in Martha's Vineyard, so now I just watch it all.
All of it?
Yeah.
So ladies and gentlemen, give yourselves a round of applause. Right before we go into Q&A, we have something.
Okay. Should I be alarmed? I don't know.
So this is a little something for you.
Oh,
appreciation.
Thank you. Yay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So what it reads, we'll read it
Okay.
together. I guess.
Okay.
You read it? You read. All right, I'll read it. We'll read it. All right. So certificate. Oh, I'll read it.
I'm here.
Certificate of Appreciation, the Miami-Dade County Office of the Mayor and Board of County Commissioners presents to Yvette Nicol Harris, guest speaker in Making Moves in Miami, FIU Honors Course. As mayor, I'm not the mayor, but on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners and the residents of Miami-Dade County, we all take great pleasure in presenting the Certificate of Appreciation to you in recognition of your valuable contributions to our community on this, the 9th day of the month of April 2025 in Miami-Dade County.
Oh, thank you.
Put it together.
Yeah.